The Formula One world is on edge as the season heads into its final, critical phase. Red Bull Racing and Max Verstappen have dominated much of the season, but now a fierce competitor is closing in. Lando Norris and McLaren are mounting a serious challenge. With just 6 races remaining, including the upcoming US Grand Prix, every decision counts, and Red Bull has a lot riding on their next moves. If you've been following the twists and turns of this season, you'll know just how unpredictable F1 can be, and the last thing Red Bull wants is to see their lead slip away in the final moments. Will these upcoming changes be enough to secure the title? Make sure to stick around because we're about to dive deep into the upgrades that could either cement Red Bull's dominance or give McLaren the opening they need to strike. As the season races toward the finish line in Abu Dhabi, Verstappen sits with a 52-point advantage over Norris, but that lead could shrink quickly. The stakes are sky high, with 180 points still up for grabs across the final 6 races, 3 of which will feature sprint events, each offering extra points that could swing the balance. It's a comfortable gap for Verstappen, but not one that guarantees him a 4th straight championship without a fight. The question now is whether Red Bull's upcoming upgrades can keep them ahead, or if Norris will find a way to close the distance. To understand the gravity of the situation, we need to look closely at the developments happening within Red Bull's camp. Their performance has been inconsistent in the second half of the season, and the upcoming US Grand Prix will be pivotal. Red Bull's engineers have been hard at work preparing massive upgrades for the race in Austin, and these changes could determine whether Verstappen continues his march to victory or whether the team falters in the final leg. McLaren has shown impressive form recently, and Norris's win in Singapore was a wake-up call for Red Bull. That victory cut Verstappen's lead to 52 points, raising the pressure on Red Bull to act decisively. And act they must because McLaren is gaining momentum, and every misstep by Red Bull will give their rivals an opening. With only 6 races left, including sprint races that add even more points into the mix, the margin for error is razor thin. One of the biggest factors influencing the outcome is the set of upgrades Red Bull will bring to Austin. These aren't just minor tweaks, they're crucial adjustments aimed at fixing some of the RB20's core problems. In fact, many of these issues have plagued the car since mid-season. While Red Bull's dominance was clear early on, winning 7 of the first 10 races, their performance dipped noticeably in the following 8. What happened to that early season magic? Some say Red Bull's engineering team took a wrong turn in their car's development path, leading to a slew of aerodynamic and dynamic balance problems. The RB20, which had been almost untouchable in the first half of the season, started showing weaknesses, particularly in its aerodynamic balance and car dynamics. At first glance, these might seem like minor issues, but in Formula One, even the smallest imbalance can be the difference between victory and defeat. Red Bull has been scrambling to diagnose and fix these problems, and now, just weeks before the US Grand Prix, they believe they've pinpointed the root cause. Their engineers found that the car's development veered off track during the summer break. The RB20's concept seemed to hit a wall, leading the team down a path that caused more harm than good. The aerodynamic package, in particular, has been a thorn in their side, with the car struggling to maintain its competitive edge. A key issue has been the understeer that became increasingly noticeable as the season progressed. Despite trying to fix this at various points, the car remained unresponsive to changes. When the new front wing package was introduced at Silverstone, it failed to deliver the improvements Red Bull had hoped for, raising alarms within the team. By shifting the car's aerodynamic pressure towards the front, they aimed to reduce understeer, but instead, they encountered a new set of challenges. In fact, the car's balance seemed to deteriorate even further, particularly on tracks like Hungary, where the issues were magnified. This was a worrying sign something was fundamentally wrong, and the team had to act fast to keep their championship hopes alive. Their solution? A full-scale backward investigation. Red Bull's engineers went back to the drawing board, analyzing data from wind tunnels, CFD simulations, and on-track performance to identify where things had gone wrong. One of the first tangible results of this investigation came in the form of a new diffuser, which was rolled out at the Baku Grand Prix. This upgrade helped stabilize the rear of the car, particularly in low downforce settings, but it was only a small piece of the puzzle. Now, as the team prepares for the Austin Grand Prix, the stakes couldn't be higher. Red Bull has developed a comprehensive upgrade package, focusing heavily on aerodynamics. Their engineers are zeroing in on the front section of the floor, specifically around the flow diverters, to adjust how air moves beneath the car. The idea is to regain the balance and grip that have been slipping away in recent races, especially through high-speed corners where the car's instability has been most pronounced. These upgrades Red Bull is bringing to Austin aren't just about solving problems, they're about ensuring Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez can regain confidence in the car. This is especially critical for Verstappen, whose ability to push the car to its limits is one of his key strengths. When he's fully in tune with the car, Verstappen enters a unique comfort zone where he excels beyond the competition. But if the car remains unpredictable, even the best drivers can struggle. This is why the upcoming US Grand Prix is more than just another race, it's Red Bull's chance to set things right before it's too late. The modifications to the RB20 are focused on two main areas: the floor and the front wing. By redesigning the front section of the floor, Red Bull aims to improve the airflow beneath the car, which will help stabilize the rear end and reduce the chronic understeer that's been plaguing them. It's all about managing the turbulent air that builds up around the floor's edges, which, when uncontrolled, can throw off the car's balance. In simple terms, these adjustments are designed to make the car more predictable, allowing Verstappen and Perez to push harder without worrying about sudden instability. But that's not all Red Bull has in store. Alongside the floor changes, they're also introducing a redesigned front wing. This new wing architecture will give the team greater flexibility in how they adjust the aerodynamic load, especially at lower speeds where the car has been struggling with cornering. The goal here is to enhance the car's performance in tight bends, where understeer has been a persistent issue. The team hopes that by increasing the flap incidence, they can generate more downforce on the front tires, allowing the car to grip better through the corners. While these upgrades sound promising on paper, their success will only be proven once the cars hit the track. The Austin race will serve as a crucial testing ground for Red Bull, as they aim to refine the RB20's handling in real-world conditions. Every lap, every corner will provide feedback that could make or break their championship hopes. Verstappen's comfort with the car will be key to whether he can maintain his lead over Lando Norris and secure his fourth consecutive World Championship title. However, Red Bull's engineers are not underestimating the task at hand. They know that the upgrades must work flawlessly because McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari are all closing in fast. McLaren in particular has shown incredible progress, and Norris's victory in Singapore was just the beginning. If Red Bull stumbles, McLaren could capitalize, making this final stretch of the season even more intense. Red Bull's approach to the US Grand Prix isn't just about fixing past mistakes, it's about staying ahead of the competition, especially in a field where other teams are also pushing for last-minute improvements. McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari are all expected to bring their own updates to Austin, and Red Bull can't afford to fall behind. Ferrari is reportedly preparing a package of aerodynamic improvements, while Mercedes is fine-tuning their setup to gain any advantage they can in these final races. But Red Bull's focus is clear: they're putting everything into restoring the balance of the RB20. The car's understeer issues, particularly in high-speed corners, have been their Achilles heel, and the upcoming upgrades are aimed at solving this. Adjustments to the front area of the floor, combined with the redesigned front wing, are intended to allow the car to handle corners with more precision. This could be the breakthrough Red Bull needs, but it's not just about theory, it's about execution on the track. Budget constraints also play a huge role in the development process. Red Bull, like all teams, is operating under the strict F1 cost cap, meaning they need to be highly selective about where they spend their resources. Gone are the days when teams could throw endless upgrades at their cars. Now, every development has to count, especially as Red Bull faces additional limitations due to their success last season. As the reigning Constructors' champions, Red Bull has less wind tunnel and development time compared to their rivals, so they need to be sure that each change they make will have a significant impact. Christian Horner, Red Bull's team principal, has emphasized that the team is focusing on getting the most out of the car's existing design rather than starting from scratch. "We have to think very carefully about where we are applying our resources," Horner said recently. "There's no room for error with the cost cap and the development restrictions. Every upgrade has to deliver results, or we're wasting valuable time and money." In Austin, the team will be closely monitoring how the RB20 performs with its new upgrades. If all goes to plan, Verstappen should feel a renewed sense of confidence in the car, especially through the technical sections of the Circuit of the Americas. For Red Bull, this is essential not only for Verstappen to maintain his lead over Lando Norris, but also to fend off challenges from Mercedes and Ferrari in the constructors' standings. The balance of the car is key to Verstappen's driving style. He thrives when the car behaves predictably, allowing him to push the limits in a way that few other drivers can. If Red Bull can nail the aerodynamic changes and restore the stability that's been missing in recent races, Verstappen will be able to maintain his aggressive driving approach. This is what Red Bull is betting on as they enter the US Grand Prix with their sights set on both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships. As Red Bull heads to Austin, they're not just fighting for race wins, they're fighting for their reputation. The dominance they enjoyed early in the season has been called into question, and now the pressure is on to prove they can still compete at the highest level. The upgrades coming to the RB20 are their answer to the setbacks they've faced, and the stakes couldn't be higher. One of the most important areas Red Bull has targeted with their upgrades is the floor of the RB20. The goal is to address the turbulent airflow that's been causing instability at the rear of the car, particularly in high-speed corners. If the car remains unpredictable in these sections, Verstappen's lead could be in serious jeopardy. That's why the team has been working to tweak the design, especially around the flow diverters, to ensure smoother airflow beneath the car. By doing this, they hope to reduce the drag and increase downforce, giving Verstappen and Perez more control when they need it most. Another significant change is the new flexible front wing, which has been designed to give Red Bull an edge in lower speed corners. Flexi wings are nothing new in Formula One, but the way Red Bull plans to use them could make a huge difference. The redesigned architecture of the front wing will allow the team to adjust the angle of the flaps more precisely, giving them better control over how much downforce the car generates. This is especially important in tight bends, where understeer has been a consistent problem. The flexibility of the front wing profiles will allow for greater load at low speeds without compromising the car's handling at higher speeds. This is a delicate balance to strike, but if Red Bull gets it right, it could transform the RB20's cornering performance. They'll be hoping that these changes bring an immediate improvement in Austin, where the track's mix of high-speed straights and tight technical sections will test the car's versatility. But these upgrades come with no guarantees. Red Bull knows that their success depends on more than just the car's mechanical performance. The human element is just as critical. How well Verstappen and Perez adapt to the changes could determine the outcome of the race. Verstappen, in particular, will need to re-establish his connection with the car if he's to maintain his lead over Lando Norris and the other contenders. The question now is whether these upgrades will be enough to keep Red Bull ahead in the F1 championship battle. McLaren's resurgence, combined with steady improvements from Mercedes and Ferrari, means that Red Bull can't afford to rest on their laurels. Norris has already shown that he's capable of closing the gap, and with more points available in the sprint races, there's little room for error. The upgrades Red Bull is bringing to Austin are more than just technical adjustments, they're a statement. After a season that started strong but has since seen a dip in form, this race represents a pivotal moment. With only a handful of races remaining, Red Bull knows that any misstep could cost them both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships. Max Verstappen may have a lead, but in Formula One, gaps can close quickly, especially with teams like McLaren gaining momentum. Red Bull is banking on these changes to keep Verstappen in his comfort zone, which is crucial for him to perform at his best. The redesigned front wing and modifications to the car's floor are not just about improving lap times, they're about restoring balance and predictability to a car that has, at times, been difficult to handle. These adjustments will help manage the understeer that has haunted Verstappen in recent races. If Red Bull can successfully fine-tune the RB20 to give their drivers more confidence, it could spell the difference between maintaining their lead or falling into dangerous territory, where every race becomes a fight for survival. Red Bull's engineers are acutely aware of how critical this moment is. Christian Horner has been vocal about the challenges they face, reminding fans and competitors alike that Red Bull is operating under tighter restrictions than their rivals. Their development time is limited, not just by the cost cap but by the reduced wind tunnel hours allocated to teams based on their success. Red Bull's dominance last season, while a blessing, has also become a curse in this regard. They have less time and fewer resources to make the necessary improvements, which puts extra pressure on every upgrade to deliver. This means that the team can't afford to experiment too much. Every decision has to be carefully calculated, and each new part needs to perform as expected. That's why Red Bull is focusing on fine-tuning the existing design rather than making radical changes. The hope is that these smaller, precise adjustments will bring the RB20 back to its earlier form, where it dominated the first half of the season. But while Red Bull is fighting to maintain their edge, the competition isn't sitting still. McLaren, buoyed by Norris's recent form, is preparing their own upgrades, and Ferrari is not far behind. Red Bull will need their updates to hit the mark in Austin, or they risk losing valuable ground in the final races. At the same time, the sprint races add another layer of complexity. These short-form races provide an opportunity for teams to earn extra points, and for Red Bull, that means there's even more at stake. A strong performance in the sprint could solidify their position, but a poor showing could allow McLaren or Mercedes to narrow the gap, putting even more pressure on the main event. As the race weekend in Austin approaches, all eyes will be on how Red Bull's new upgrades perform under real track conditions. The Circuit of the Americas is known for its diverse layout, mixing long straights with complex, technical sections. This track will put the RB20 through its paces, testing not only its straight-line speed but also its ability to handle tight corners and quick changes in direction. The high-speed corners, in particular, have been a weak point for Red Bull in recent races, and it's here that the modifications to the front wing and floor will be most crucial. Verstappen, with his aggressive driving style, thrives in a car that responds intuitively to his inputs. When everything clicks, he's almost unstoppable. However, the RB20's recent handling issues have prevented him from pushing to his full potential. This is why the upgrades are so critical. Red Bull needs to give Verstappen the tools he requires to maintain his lead over Norris and fend off the rising competition. With Lando Norris closing the gap and Mercedes and Ferrari making their own gains, every detail counts. The upgrades Red Bull has prepared are designed to do just that: enhance the car's predictability, reduce the understeer, and allow for more precise handling in both high and low-speed corners. By revising the front wing's architecture and improving airflow around the floor, Red Bull hopes to strike a balance that will allow Verstappen to push harder without worrying about the car's stability. This could give him the edge he needs to hold off the charging Norris and secure crucial points as the season heads into its final stages. But it's not just about Verstappen. Sergio Perez, too, has had his share of struggles with the RB20. While Verstappen has managed to adapt somewhat to the car's inconsistencies, Perez has found it more difficult to find the same level of comfort. For Red Bull to stay competitive in the Constructors' Championship, Perez needs to find his form as well, and these upgrades could be just what he needs to regain confidence in the car. Christian Horner and the Red Bull team know that the window for making significant improvements is closing fast. With the cost cap and development time limits, they can't afford to keep testing new parts without immediate results. The upcoming race in Austin is their best chance to show that they can still compete with McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari, and that their early season dominance wasn't a fluke. As the race weekend nears, the anticipation is building not just for Red Bull, but for the entire Formula One community. Can these upgrades propel Red Bull back to the front of the pack? Or will the competition close the gap even further, setting the stage for a dramatic finale to the season? One thing is for sure: Red Bull's performance in Austin could define the rest of their championship campaign. As Red Bull prepares to enter one of the most crucial weekends of the season, the pressure is on to deliver results, and not just incremental gains, big, game-changing results. The upgrades coming to Austin represent months of hard work, and now it's time to see if that work will pay off. For Max Verstappen, this race is a pivotal moment in his quest for a fourth consecutive World Championship title. Holding a 52-point lead sounds comfortable, but with 180 points still available across the remaining races, including sprint events, nothing is set in stone. If Red Bull's upgrades perform as expected, Verstappen will have the car he needs to extend his lead and close out the season on top. However, if the improvements fall short, the door opens wide for Lando Norris and McLaren to capitalize on Red Bull's struggles. McLaren's recent rise, coupled with Norris's win in Singapore, has put Red Bull on notice. This isn't going to be an easy run to the finish line. Every decision Red Bull makes from now on will have far-reaching consequences for both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships. But what about the competition? While Red Bull focuses on getting their house in order, teams like Mercedes and Ferrari aren't sitting idle. Both teams are pushing forward with their own upgrades, hoping to make gains before the season's end. Mercedes, in particular, has been slowly clawing its way back into contention, and with the sprint races providing additional points, they could still play a spoiler role. Ferrari, too, has been making steady progress, and their upgrades for Austin could give them the boost they need to get back into the fight. For Red Bull, It's not just about winning races, it's about strategy. The team has to make sure that every decision they make is the right one, from tire management to pit stops to race strategy. One small mistake could mean losing valuable points, and with so much at stake, there's no room for error. As the race weekend kicks off in Austin, all the pieces will start to fall into place. The upgrades to the RB20, the changes to the floor and front wing, and the driver's ability to adapt will all be put to the test. Max Verstappen will need to dig deep, not just to maintain his lead over Lando Norris, but to prove that Red Bull still has what it takes to dominate the sport. Meanwhile, Sergio Perez will be looking to regain his confidence and help secure crucial points in the constructors' standings. In the end, Austin will be a defining moment for Red Bull. It's a chance for them to reaffirm their dominance, fix the issues that have been holding them back, and close out the season on a high note. But if things don't go according to plan, the final races of the season could be a lot more unpredictable than anyone expected. All eyes will be on Red Bull, waiting to see if these upgrades will bring the results they need. So, what do you think? Will Red Bull's upgrades bring them back to the front of the pack, or will McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari continue to close the gap? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and stay tuned for what promises to be an unforgettable race weekend. As Red Bull Racing heads into the final stretch of this thrilling Formula One season, the stakes have never been higher. With just 6 races to go, the battle for the championship is far from over. Max Verstappen may be leading, but Lando Norris, along with McLaren's relentless charge, poses a real threat. The upgrades Red Bull is bringing to Austin could be the key to maintaining their edge or the moment their rivals close in. Everything now rests on whether these changes will solve the issues that have plagued them in recent races. But remember, this isn't just about Max. Sergio Perez also has a critical role to play. Red Bull needs both drivers performing at their peak to secure the constructors' title. The teamwork, the strategy, and the car itself all need to come together flawlessly in Austin. Anything less, and Red Bull risks seeing their dominance slip away. The US Grand Prix will be the ultimate test of Red Bull's resilience, their ability to adapt, and their hunger to stay on top. Every detail matters. From the redesigned front wing to the reworked floor, each upgrade is a calculated move in the high-stakes chess match that is Formula One. If Red Bull succeeds, they'll extend their lead and cement their place at the top. If they fail, the final races could turn into a dramatic showdown where every point will count. And so, we head into the Austin Grand Prix with everything to play for. The eyes of the racing world are locked on Red Bull. Can they deliver when it matters most? Only time will tell. One thing is for sure, this will be a weekend you won't want to miss. Let me know your predictions in the comments. Will Red Bull bounce back with these new upgrades? Or will McLaren and the other contenders make their move? Be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and stay tuned for all the latest updates as we follow the epic conclusion to this year's Formula One Championship.